Our friend Mariah Ross was in the house there at Williams-Brice and got a chance to see this team firsthand. First off, Mariah, thank you so much for joining us. 35-13, the final score there. What were the biggest things that stuck out to you about the win and being able to snap that two-game losing streak?
Yeah, well, we can't talk about this game without talking about the defense, obviously back-to-back touchdowns from that unit. So that definitely stuck out the most. We were just talking before we came on about all of the things that South Carolina did need to fix. And they came into this game and showed a lot of improvement in those areas. The run game was a lot better. The O-line held up a lot better. And then obviously that defense played a lot better than they did the last couple of weeks. So I would say the defense for sure. You cannot talk about this win without going there.
Absolutely, and we've talked about this defense and the special teams the whole time, and deservedly so, because it feels like Patrick brought this up yesterday, and I thought it was a really, really good point, that the defense almost kind of held the rope for a little bit for the offense, and it felt like early in the season, the special teams did the same thing for the offense until the offense was able to get going. Is there any concern with the offense because they can't get off to faster starts, or is it just, hey, we have potential to be good in all three phases of the game?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're playing true complementary football, the way that every coach, every team preaches they want to do. Obviously, you want to see a little bit more from the offense, and I think as the season continues to roll on, we will see more from them. It's a very young group in terms of the receivers, the O-line. So I think we'll see more improvement from them, but you can't be mad when your defense is scoring multiple touchdowns a game. If you're getting multiple punt returns a game, I think it's the true complementary football that everybody talks about wanting to have.
Lenore Sellers, a guy that you see right there back in action this past week. I know he was back the week before as well. How much better did he look? Did he look back to his normal self? Where would you gauge where he is both physically and mentally?
He looked back like his old self, for sure. I think last week maybe was a little bit slower just because obviously coming off of a head injury, you don't know what he was feeling. And so maybe he was slower because of that. We can't know for sure. But he absolutely looked like his old self. He was being aggressive with the run game, aggressive in RPO situations, and kind of showing flashes of that magic that we saw against Clemson last season. So definitely looking back like his old self. We obviously want to see him throwing the ball a little bit more, but the fact that he was so aggressive in the run game, led the team in rushing yards. That's definitely something that you want to see from a quarterback like that has the ability to extend plays with his legs in that way.
I think everybody in college football, they do this somewhat lazy argument, but some, I get it to a certain degree. They want to but everything as far as like, for example, LSU's big wins early in the season. Yeah, but it's Clemson and Clemson looks terrible. Yeah, but now it's Florida and going into the season. On South Carolina, I feel like you could do it on both sides. South Carolina lost to Vanderbilt. Yeah, but Lenore Sellers knocked out of the football game. They beat Kentucky. Yeah, but it's Kentucky. Where do you gauge this team after 5 wins or after 5 games so far this season, and the break coming at a good time before a really strong back half of the year?
Yeah, I think you just said it there. The break is coming at quite a perfect time in my mind. It gives them time to heal up. They have had some injuries, and like you said, there is always the but it's Kentucky, and maybe they aren't the upper echelon of the SEC, but the fact that you're going into the bye with all of this momentum and heading into the toughest part of the schedule with momentum on your side, I do think that the team is going to continue to improve. Like I said, it is a very young group in a lot of different areas, but maybe this is finally the time when they are starting to gel, starting to get it together and figure out how they play for each other and play as a team and just continue to grow from here.
Absolutely. We got a chance to hear from South Carolina head coach Shane Beamer right before the off week.
To win the turnover battle, we talked about it. Clayton talked about it to the defense last night, David. Like, don't just win the turnover battle. We want to dominate this thing. And there's an old saying with turnovers when they come in bunches. In regards to the running game, we ran for 178. That's a hell of a lot better than -12 or whatever we were last week. So that's a positive. We ran it 48 times, which I love that. I love the fact that we were out there on that last drive with a couple of those plays. We didn't even have a receiver on the field. We had 4 tight ends out there just playing old school smash mouth football.
Honestly, I love his energy, and he was just like, hey, we got a chance to run the football, and that's what we wanted to do, is run the football. Do you see this team maybe not necessarily changing their identity, but shifting their identity to run the football more, take a little pressure off Lenore Sellers, and then open up the passing game from there?
Well, we've been talking all season long about the struggles that the run game has had. We obviously saw them improve in this last week, their best rushing performance so far this season. But there were still moments, and Shane Beamer said it in his post-game interview, that he felt they missed. And so we definitely saw them trying to attack that more and lean into that more and hopefully improve in that perspective. But they do also have a lot of young and talented receivers that they definitely want to get the ball out to. It's interesting. There was actually only one receiver who had more than one catch. He had 5, and that was Bontravius Jacobs. He is an up-and-coming sophomore and just doing absolutely amazing things on the outside for Lenora Sellers. But like I said, a lot of young guys that they want to get the ball out to, and so we have seen them lean into that run game and just try to improve there. But I do think that it's an overall really talented team, and they can do what they want with it. Obviously, taking some of the pressure off of Lenora Sellers is going to help, but we do also want to see him throw the ball a little bit more.
No question. Okay, so we've talked about this since fall camp, really, about just the front half and back half of the schedule. Before I do so, I'm going to make a basketball parallel. So a lot of basketball players, especially shooters, what they'll say is sometimes they just feel confidence when they just see the ball going through the hoop, whether it is a free throw, whether it's a layup, just seeing the ball go through the hoop the first time really gives them a lot of confidence as the game moves forward. Right. How big is this win, just seeing that W, seeing the ball go through the hoop in a certain parallel, feel as they go forward? Because the schedule, as we've talked about plenty of times before, it is tough. It's LSU, right, Oklahoma, Alabama, Ole Miss, and A&M back to back after this. How does it feel going into this one with the win, and where do both the fans and the team feel like as they go to the back half of the season?
Well, confidence is a great word to use here. I think that a lot of the younger guys who maybe haven't gotten as much playing time are definitely going into this week feeling more confident. And for the older veteran guys who are the leaders on this team, they're telling the guys like, hey, I told you we could get here, and we knew that we were going to be successful at some point, and now we're doing it. So I think confidence is kind of booming all around, especially for a guy like Dylan Stort, per se, who last season had a great year for them, was really, really strong in that defensive unit. And he's been off to a little bit of a slower start, but to see him do so successfully this past week, 1.5 sacks, and just really attacking the quarterback the way that we know he can, you can see a guy like him going into the next couple of weeks more confident, just knowing that he got back to that same success that he had last season.
Mariah, coming off that off week, they obviously go to LSU, but those next few games that Gerhard just mentioned, what do you think is a realistic projection for those games wins-wise, that the fans can be like, okay, we won X amount of games, I feel good?
I am superstitious, so I don't like to bring this stuff up. I do feel pretty good about going into LSU, and I didn't know that I would feel this way going into it, but I think just like we've talked about, having the momentum going into this one, and LSU maybe not being on that same track, we've definitely seen their weaknesses a little bit more as the season has rolled on. So I think there's not, I wouldn't judge you if you were a little bit confident going into LSU. Oklahoma's obviously very tough. Will they have their quarterback back at that point?
Lagway, you mean DJ Lagway?
No, John Mateer.
Oh, Mateer. By that point, I think that's kind of the iffy point. If he'll be back by then.
When is that game?
That game is in 3 weeks from now. So he broke it last week. So I think he'll still be
I thought
back.
the last report I saw was at the
a month, right?
Yeah, right around a month.
Yeah.
So I would doubt
that's going to be dependent, right, on whether he's in the game, and I'm sure they have a great backup who can play well too. But I would say maybe to win. You want to win all of them, right? But I think to win at least 2 of the 4 would be not a horrible place to be. I mean, I don't know if we're still looking at playoff hopes at this point in the season, just because it's such a tough conference, obviously, to play in. And you don't want to completely give up at this point. They can win out. You never know. You know, they had a great streak at the end of last season. But I think if they can win at least 2 to 3 games, I would feel good about it coming out of October, early November.
I think so too. I think it's fair. And I've heard a coach say this before, that every game is winnable on their schedule and every game is losable on their schedule. And I think for South Carolina, they kind of sit in this perfect little spot where every game is winnable, but it's also every game is losable. So we'll see how they do. Okay, I feel like at this point it's almost like the obligatory check-in with the Clemson Tigers with you, but we kind of got to one of the worst starts ever. I think the worst start for Dabo Swinney in his tenure there in Clemson. What do you make of where the Tigers are right now and trying to pick up the pieces? Because like we talked about with South Carolina, there is some hope there. It feels hopeless with the other squad.
It does feel a little bit hopeless, and we've talked about it over the last couple of weeks, just what is going on with them. Why have they not been as successful this season as they have been in the past? And Dabo Swinney in his press conference yesterday placed most of the blame on the coaching staff. So at least now we know who to target and who to come for. But I understand that, and I agree with that. We talked last week about whether it was a coaching problem or an effort problem, which also kind of goes back to coaching. If you're not getting and you're not pulling everything out of these players that you can, that falls on the coaches. And so Beamer kind of said it all comes down to us basically coaching better. He's not ready to make any shakeups on the coaching staff. He believes he has good coaches. They just maybe aren't coaching to the best of their abilities at this point in time. So it'll be interesting to see them play against UNC and see if they've made any improvements. I'm sure they have going into this bye or following this bye. But it'll be a big test, and Belichick is obviously no scrub, but college coaching is obviously different than NFL. So that'll be an interesting game. And I think if the Tigers do end up winning, people might completely flip it and be like, we're back. But I wouldn't say that necessarily right away. But yeah, it was good to hear Dabo kind of take some responsibility for what was going on, and we'll see how it plays out.
Right, you led me right into my question, because I was looking at the Clemson schedule and I saw UNC was next, and honestly, both of these teams right now are kind of underperforming their preseason expectations, and I mean that's a matchup that. I mean, literally 5 weeks ago, you could have been like, oh, College Game Day is going to go for this matchup. But, I mean, both teams have been severely underperforming. But, I mean, when you look at Clemson, I think I made mention of this last week, the defense has been shocking. What do you need to see out of the defense this week to kind of right the ship? Is it a couple of 3-and-outs to start the game? Is it big stops when they need them?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of the two, right? You have to start the game with that momentum on your side, and I think starting it with a couple 3-and-outs can never hurt. But obviously, they have to tackle better. They have to get off the field quicker and not allow those big explosive plays that they've been allowing in the last couple of weeks. So I think just playing the shutdown defense that they are capable of. They have so much talent on all sides of the ball. And so really just, play with the talent that you have and be the team that you're supposed to be, basically.
One more thing before we let you go, and I'm sure that if you've probably already heard this question a couple of times, and you will probably between now and December a bunch of times. Of course, every time there's a job opening, the very first thing that you find on the internet is who are the guys that are going to replace that guy. We're already hearing this with Arkansas, but of course also with Virginia Tech. And there's obviously a good parallel, and a lot of people are making these connections because Shane Beamer's father worked there for so long.
Right.
If you were just to pie chart it, the percentages of whether he actually does take it or does not take it, or there's even interest on the other side, where do you see that, and how is he handling those questions that I'm sure are coming his way?
He is completely ignoring them, to be honest, and completely just brushing them off. His only focus right now is the South Carolina Gamecocks. And it's funny that you mentioned it, actually. At the first game when they played Virginia Tech in Atlanta, he said, I was born in Charleston. I'm not, I know I was a part of the Virginia Tech family and I've been around it for so long, but I am a South Carolina guy through and through. And I was before I was a Hokie. And so I think his only focus right now is the South Carolina Gamecocks and making sure that they are as successful as they can be. I'm not sure what the interest looks like on either side, to be honest, but I think for Beamer right now, his only focus is what's in front of him. If I had to pie chart it, that's a tough one, because it's such a weird time. Like, no one really wants to be open and talk about what's really going on behind the scenes, right? So I would say maybe a 25% chance he goes.
Okay.
But I really don't see him heading out the door anytime soon, to be honest with you.
I don't either. And honestly, too, it might just be a situation, and sometimes this is the way the business is the fact that you can leverage this to get a little more money from your school or get a little sweeter deal from your school as well. So, I mean, it might just be as simple as that, as let Jimmy Sexton or whoever represents him just, work the magic in the background.
And I mean, they love him out here in South Carolina. Yeah. He is, a highlight in his own right. So I don't really see him going anywhere anytime soon, but crazier things have happened, as we say.
They certainly have. A big win over Kentucky, a week off this week. Next week, a big one in Death Valley at LSU. Mariah Ross, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate you.